I need a baby. If not, I'll lose everything. The words tore out of me. On a summer morning, raw, ugly, beneath a sky so achingly blue, it felt like a cruel joke. The sun was just rising, painting the endless fields in painful gold. Dew glittered. Cows grated with that calm, oblivious peace that only twisted the knot in my stomach tighter. Inside me, a storm raged, violent, merciless. Loneliness, a cold, familiar ache I'd ignored for years, now clawed up my throat. It wasn't just hunger for a child, it was hunger for warmth, for someone to see me, for someone to want me. She watched me, unblinking, marble Vance. Her face stayed carefully neutral, but her eyes, the warm color of sunlit amber, gave nothing away. She'd always been good at that. Even back when we were kids, racing horses along the fence lines, fierce rivals in a world that hadn't yet learned how to break us. Then meet my condition, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut straight through the wide, heavy silence between us. The farm behind her wasn't just land, it was legacy. My father's last breath, poured into every inch of soil and timber, and it was slipping away, held only by the thinnest threads of his brutal, final will. A child within 1 year, or the entire estate would fall to the corporate buyers, circling like a vulture. At 32, single, drowning in debt from failed harvests and old medical bills, I had no partner, not even anyone willing to pretend. Bree had been torn away from me, piece by agonizing piece. That morning, only desperation was left. I had stayed loyal to the land, watching it slowly wither. Marble had left long ago, built a successful veterinary practice, then returned after her own divorce, carrying scars I could only guess at. When I asked her, it wasn't romantic. It was humiliating. I laid it all bare. The will, the threat of my father's grave, swallowed by industrial machines. Every memory erased. She didn't laugh. She didn't pity. She simply listened, her gaze steady, thoughtful. Then she said she would help, but only if I met her condition. Her condition wasn't money. It wasn't marriage. It was honesty, partnership. A child would never be a transaction. It would be shared. She would move into the farmhouse. We would raise the baby together, and I would let her turn part of the farm into an animal rehabilitation sanctuary. The idea felt reckless, adding a sanctuary to a dying farm. But as she spoke, her voice softening, about injured creatures, about giving broken things a place to heal, something inside me shifted. Her quiet conviction was a slow, steady force eroding the walls I'd built. Maybe the farm didn't have to stay. Just my father's past. Maybe it could become something new, something that healed. The ache of my own loneliness, so long buried, recognized the same longing in her. I agreed. The months that followed were careful, restrained. Marble moved into the East Wing, bringing boxes of veterinary supplies and a presence that filled the house with a quiet hum I hadn't realized I'd been missing. We argued, of course, about fencing, feed, the old barn. But beneath every disagreement, something else was growing. One evening, I walked past the open door of the East Wing. A thin stripe of light spilled into the hallway. I heard the soft rustle of fabric, the faint click of a buckle. My breath caught. She was changing. Just beyond that fragile doorway, the barrier felt paper thin, more emotional than physical. I imagined the curve of her back, the slow grace of her movements, the warm scent of her skin. My hands curled into fists. I fought the sudden rush of want, the sharp urge to know more. I forced my feet to move forward, past the doorway, into the thick silence of the house, suddenly alive with everything I hadn't seen, couldn't ask, barely dared to feel. During the days, we worked side by side, sun beating down. She treated calves, rescued strays, I mended fences, haggled prices. The sanctuary slowly took shape. Volunteers came. Their laughter echoed across fields that used to feel heavy with grief. Our conversations stretched longer. We'd stand rooted to the spot, a deliberate closeness neither of us broke. Her eyes, usually guarded, would sometimes drift to my mouth when I spoke, then lift again, holding mine a heartbeat too long. Heavy with something unspoken, our shoulders would brush, a quick spark of contact. Neither of us acknowledged, but the awareness of it pulsed between us. Quiet, urgent, contained. Then one ordinary Tuesday morning, golden light pouring through the kitchen window, Marble handed me a small envelope. Her hands were steady, but her eyes shimmered with a vulnerability I'd never seen. "It's positive," she whispered. For the first time since my father died, I fell to my knees, not in defeat, but in messy, overwhelming gratitude. Fear still coiled tight inside me, but now it shared space with something fragile, terrifying, beautiful. Hope. Pregnancy changed everything. I watched her move through the sanctuary, one hand resting unconsciously on the gentle swell of her belly, whispering soft reassurances to trembling animals. I saw a strength in her I hadn't known when we were kids, a deep well of compassion. She wasn't helping me out of pity. She was building something with me, something sacred. But the challenges never disappeared. The corporate buyer kept pressing. A storm tore through the new fencing one evening on the porch, sun melting into amber and pink. I finally let the truth out. "I'm scared," I said, voice rough. Scared of failing, of being a father who can't protect his child, of losing everything. She didn't rush in with empty comfort. She simply moved closer, the porch swing shifting subtly, our thighs brushing. The shared heat between us felt almost unbearable in its restraint. Her hand covered mine, warm, firm. The touch jolted through me, anchoring me while everything else unraveled. She didn't look at my face. Her gaze stayed on our joined hands. "A child," she said softly, steadily, "doesn't need perfection. A child needs love, presence, and the courage to keep trying." Her thumb moved once, slow, tender, across the back of my hand. A small, unintentional gesture that sent a tremor through my whole body. I could feel her breath, slow, even, right beside me. The air crackled, unspoken comfort, unspoken desire. Every instinct screamed to pull her closer, to lean into the warmth, to drown in touch. But I held back. The effort hurt. The moment felt too fragile, too precious to risk. The silence between us stretched, thick with everything. We weren't saying everything we couldn't yet allow. For the first time, I understood her condition completely. It was never just about the sanctuary. It was about building a life rooted in compassion, not desperation. It was about shared risk. The day our daughter was born, the sky was bright, mercifully clear. I held her tiny body, soft skin, new breath, and felt something inside me rearrange forever. The deadline was met. The farm was legally ours, but in that hospital room, flooded with morning light, I finally understood. I hadn't fought to save land. I'd fought to find purpose, and purpose had found me in the shape of a woman, brave enough to demand more than convenience, and a child whose first cry sounded like redemption. Years later, The Vance Reyes Sanctuary thrives. School buses come. Children feed goats. Learn empathy. The corporate buyer finally withdrew, unable to compete. With a community bound by kindness, Marble and I never had a grand romantic confession. Love grew quietly between shared responsibilities, sleepless nights, and the simple, daily choice to keep choosing each other. It wasn't dramatic, it was real. Sometimes I stand at that same fence where I once begged her for help. The cows still graze, the sun still rises, but I'm no longer the desperate man, afraid of losing everything. I'm a father, a partner, a guardian of land that now heals more than it produces. I look across the fields, at the distant farmhouse, at the life we built. There's still an ache in my chest, a sweet, quiet longing that never quite fades for the careful path we chose rather than the edge we stood on. That night on the porch, our eyes still linger sometimes. A breath still catches, a hand almost reaches, and then we turn away, choosing instead the quiet, powerful love that grew from shared desperation and unwavering compassion. That condition I once feared became the very thing that saved us both.